What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture, and today we are talking about FOMO, but not in the standard watered down way of just saying FOMO is bad. I don't believe that FOMO is just bad, but we are going to talk about how to stay away from the bad FOMO in this video. I'm going to give you a few tips before we get into it. If you aren't subscribed to the channel yet, please take the time to do so. Check out all the awesome links below as well. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, I do apologize. I am in a hotel room right now due to personal issues in my home. I do plan on returning home in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. So don't mind my surroundings, but we're still here able to film a video and talk about a really awesome discussion today, FOMO. So I first and foremost want to say that fear of missing out doesn't have to be a negative thing. Sometimes the thrill and the excitement of the hobby and of collecting drives us to not want to miss out. And sometimes that rush is a positive thing, and we end up maybe purchasing things and we don't regret it in the end, and it was still out of this FOMO, right? So I do not like to make a blanket statement on FOMO and say that FOMO is horrible and it's ruining the hobby. Absolutely not. You know, we don't want to miss out on things, and we want to be hip to the game, and we want to be able to pounce on things when we hear announcements. If we're speculating on something for a show or a movie, or we're excited about that new character coming out in the comic books, and we want to make sure that we're up bright and early and we're waiting in line at our LCS before the doors even open on that Wednesday when that book comes out, because we don't want to miss out. These are good things. These are things that drive the hobby, that drive the industry and the market, and it drives us to continue to be engaged in comic book collecting. But we do know that FOMO, well, too much of anything could be a bad thing. Too much of a good thing could be a bad thing. When we get too engulfed in the FOMO, that's when it becomes a detriment, or it can become a detriment and be a negative thing to us as individuals in our health of how we collect, right? We don't want it to become an addiction. We don't want it to be something that's breaking our banks and we can't pay our bills and so forth, or just it takes a toll on us to where it makes collecting and it makes the hobby for us no longer any fun, right? So let's start going into some tips on how we can stay away from bad FOMO. All right, first tip for today, folks, and this is huge: set goals for your collection and your collecting. All right, now I'm going to give you some examples. So right now, my goal is Bronze Age comic books. It's been that for a good few years now. So what that goal means, it means even though I, as a collector, can get that urge or that fear of missing out on the next thing and this thing and that thing, I have to tell myself what's more important to me right now. And budget matters, and we're going to get into budget in a minute because it all ties in. But if I know that I'm on a budget and I see all these different things, it's this, I don't want to miss out on this Bronze Age key from continuing to increase over time. So, but I'd have to save a little money to get it, or I can take my money and spend it on these 5 new releases that have all this hype around them, and I don't want to miss out on that. But I know that I have to decide. I need to decide on what I am setting for my goals. So for me, if I had to look at these different things, from new comic books that might get hot, or there's speculation for whatever reason, a new character shows up, or there's this key that's a Bronze Age key that I've been wanting, I'm going to set my sights and my goal on that Bronze Age key, because that's my goal that I've set as collecting. My number one priority is Bronze Age books. So if I miss out on some of these new books that were released, That's fine as long as I'm picking up that Bronze Age key. Right now, here's another example. I kind of switched my priority because Marvel Bronze Age specifically has been like top on my list, filling my Marvel Bronze Age runs. Well, I shop in different ways in different days too. So I know that some days I'll be saving some money for a key book, but some days I just want to hit up a sale at one of my local shops. A1, because it is A1 Wednesday, by the way. And they're having the sale, and I just want to spend a little bit of money on back issue. I want to raid their back issue bins, right? So when I go to this sale, oh my gosh, how easy would it be for me to pick up like every book in their back issue bins? And then I'd be spending thousands of dollars. Well, I can't do that. So I have to say, what's more important to me today? So right now, if that was to happen, I was to drive over to A1, I would probably focus on some cheaper Bronze Age DC stuff because I haven't been working on my DC stuff that much at all. Maybe I would still pick out a few Marvel Bronze Age stuff for my Bronze Age Marvel runs if they were kind of in that lower tier value. But I think for the most part, I want to focus on my DC books. And then I could come out of there saying, well, I didn't grab some of those new Amazing Spider-Mans for my Amazing Spider-Man run, or, you know, I didn't grab those Disney books, even though I love collecting Disney books, but that's okay because my goal was Bronze Age DC books that I could get a decent amount of for cheap because there was a sale or whatever the case may be. Always set goals, folks, because a huge problem with FOMO is you can't buy everything. And this goes into the next tip, all right? Don't spend outside of your budget. So you see how these things relate? When you set a goal, it allows you to then say, well, let me set my budget and see how I can work my budget into my goals, right? So going back to goals though, sometimes you have a top goal, maybe a secondary goal, and a third goal, and so forth. So when you have your budget set and you're going into a LCS, like I just said, for an example, A1 at a sale, I'm going to budget accordingly to my top goal first and foremost. So maybe I'm getting DC back issue books for $2 each, $3 each. But then my secondary goal is still grabbing a couple of run fillers of Bronze Age Marvel, even though maybe they're priced at $6, $7. And maybe because of my budget, maybe I'll just grab a couple of those. You see what I'm saying? Always work your budget and know your budget and don't spend outside of your budget. Another way that I budget is this. If I know I have a certain amount of money to spend each month, I can, and my collecting style is all over the place. So I have my goals of these Bronze Age runs, these Bronze Age books. And then I do get my monthly new comic book releases, right? And then I'll always be looking for key books, you know, not necessarily huge, big key books, but key books. I will have to budget for each of those three things. So I know if I'm buying monthly books, I don't want to spend more than $50 on new releases for the month. All right, so there's my budget. So I buy most of my new releases from mycomicshop.com on previews orders for 35% off. So when I go in, when the new month's releases come out, I'll go in and I'll add a whole bunch of stuff. And then if I get to my cart and I see that I'm over budget, I'll go back and say, yeah, well, I don't really need that. I don't really need that. And it allows me to stay within my budget. All right. And sometimes I might have FOMO of, I don't know what's going on in this book. Is there a new appearance? I didn't know about it. It's got a dope cover. I don't know. If I don't know about it and I am collecting a run of a character that I love or a run that I'm actually reading, I'm going to tell myself, get rid of that book. And if I miss out, if there ends up being a first appearance in that book and I eliminated it from my cart and didn't buy it, that's on me though, and I can live with it because I still prioritized what was important to me, right? Now, if prioritizing speculation is important to you, another tip around speculation FOMO is reading your previews, knowing what's going to come out. So again, how to avoid bad FOMO to where the books come out, whether it's you're buying them through previews or you're going to your LCS on a Wednesday. So you're like, oh my God, I need to buy every single book off the shelf. You come out there, you spend $1,000 because you had to buy almost every, DC, Marvel, Boom Studio book that came out. Read your previews. You could pick up most of them for free. Some websites you could pick them up for like 50 cents to $1. Read your previews, folks, because then you know 3 months in advance what's going on with the story arcs. If there's going to be new characters released, if it's a new run, new writing, you get a new independent Boom comic title coming out, anything like that, you know in advance, and we're going to go back to the budget tip, budget accordingly. All right, so let's look at the 3 things that we talked about. Setting goals, setting your budget, and if you are about speculation, making sure, especially speculation on new releases, making sure you're reading your previews magazines 3 months in advance. All right, so now we're going to add one more tip onto reading your previews. Check all of your sources. All right, so previews is a source, but now if we're talking about speculation outside of just new books, and we want to spec on what keys are heating up, what blue chip keys are heating up, or what undervalued books might be heating up, like a West Coast Avengers 45, because a White Vision might show up in the MCU. Always utilize your resources. So what are your resources? Well, if you're talking about movie and live action and TV show spec, there's the news outlets like Screen Rant, Heroic Hollywood, comicbook.com. Stay away from, stay away from We Got This Covered. Even CBR is a rag in my humble opinion. It's all clickbait. But be up to date on these articles, on these interviews. If Kevin Feige or anyone from Marvel Studios or Warner Brothers is being interviewed for upcoming projects, stay on top of it, but also know how to differentiate. Know how to differentiate what's factual, what's a credible source, and what's not a credible source. Like I said, We Got This Covered, not a credible source. Hashtag show, not a credible source. Just because they're saying Marvel's confirmed this doesn't mean it's true. You got to not only stay up on your sources, but make sure you are able to differentiate credible sources from non-credible sources, because you don't want to get caught up in FOMO from bad speculation or false rumors to where you're buying something on something that's false and it's baseless, right? So very important. But of course, always keep up to date. Watch YouTube videos that are dropping knowledge each and every week. I mean, every week a new channel pops up and there's a new top 10. Take it all with a grain of salt. Where are they getting their information from? Is it data, or are they just throwing out their personal opinions out there, and so forth? So all of those things matter. Obviously, always check on what the market's doing as well. Check your coverprice.com. Check your key collector and their values. Although I don't know how often they update their values. Go Collect as well. Their values seem to be behind and not up to date and current. But you can always check eBay Sold if you're looking for a specific book as well. So now here's my final tip, and this one is the most important, folks. And you can do this while taking in every other tip that I said today. And that's being proactive and hunt for books before they get hot. Everyone gets the FOMO when it's too late, it seems. Not everyone, but you know what I mean. Everyone wants to get the FOMO when it's too late. And that's how you could get, I don't like to use the term burn, but I'll say it, you could get burned. You can make a decision that you end up regretting. If you really, really care about the hobby, and if you really want to stay on top of hot books before they get hot, because you don't want to miss out on them, you got to be ahead of the curve. You got to be able to buy them and get your hands on them before they get hot. So again, everything that I said before is going to help allow you to do this. Let me go back to the first example of setting your goals. And goals change. Like I said, goals change all the time. there was a time where I wasn't even paying attention to Bronze Age books, and I was just buying DC Rebirth, which is that's where I got burned. I had the FOMO. When DC Rebirth came out, I had the FOMO big, and I was spending all this money getting every issue of every run, and I got burnt out. And then I realized that most of those, 90% of those books ended up in dollar bins. And I didn't need to spend all that money. And then I realized I should have been focusing so much more of my budget. That's the second tip. So much more of my budget on setting goals. And I should have been focusing on Bronze Age book. Now, here's the thing about this current tip I'm talking about. Being ahead of the curve and being proactive. By me focusing on Bronze Age books when I did, I was able to get a lot of books that have either heated up or that are now keys that were overlooked before that I bought for $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $6 that right now are worth $20, $40, $60, $80, $100 plus dollars. You see, so you got to be ahead of the curve. So I'm going to give you guys a trade secret right now. I'm kind of changing my goals and starting to shift more to DC Bronze Age. Why? Well, for one reason, Bronze Age books are getting older and older, and their value is going to continue to increase for that long term naturally over time. But we're in a stage right now where there's not a lot of hype on a lot of these books. Because of the fact that DC doesn't have the MCU. DC doesn't have the hype that Marvel has had over the last 13 years with the MCU and Marvel Studios. Now, will DC ever get there? I don't know, but I'm hopeful. So I'm not going to wait for DC to keep having more successful movies and then start caring about these characters. I'm going to start back issue bin diving right now. You see what I'm saying? So that's the way. And then again, another tip for being proactive when we look at new releases. Don't wait until the day the book comes out to go into your store on a Wednesday and be like, oh my gosh, they're all out. Speculators are ruining the hobby. You know, it's like, no, be ahead of the curve. It goes back to the other tips. Read your previews and then order your previews on a My Comic Shop or something, or put them in your pull list. Get 35% off by ordering on my Comic Shop. So being proactive and hunting for books before they get hot is the best way to stay ahead of the curve of the FOMO, so you can make sure that you aren't getting caught up in that bad, addictive FOMO. All right, so that's the video for today, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed the tips. Again, don't be scared of having a fear of missing out. You know, we get excited and we want what we want as collectors. But before we make those purchasing decisions, make sure we are doing our due diligence, setting goals, setting budgets, being aware of the market, doing your due diligence, being proactive to grab books before they get hot. And more likely than not, you're going to be happy with your collecting, your style of collecting, and your spending habits. And you're not going to get burnt out, and you're going to keep enjoying this hobby that you love. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. I want to say before we go, another reminder, it is A1 Wednesday today, folks. Make sure you are checking out A1 Comics on Instagram. Their Instagram handle link is below. Go give them a follow. They have live Instagram sales every Wednesday and Fridays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and they go for 3 hours, and their sales are massive. I purchase from multiple. Even if I'm not purchasing, I'm hanging out a lot. They're also live on Twitch every Thursday, so you can go find them on Twitch. Their website is below as well, a-1comics.com. And keep in mind, you could be in any of the 50 states to take advantage of ordering from them online and purchasing from their IG live sales. Big shout out to A1 Comics. Another thing I gotta say, one more thing before we go. A1 Comics has upgraded and is opening a larger location in Folsom, California. So congrats to A1. It was what, 4-5 years ago when they opened up their small Folsom location. They are moving into a bigger location, which is their third location. I'm just, man, A1 Comics, keep doing what you're doing. Love you guys, man. I will always represent. So thank you guys so much for watching. Leave your comments and thoughts below. Be well, and until next time.